Last time in our story, Reese finds out who he's really working for, and now knows caring for the dead is no small chore. How will our hero deal with his new job? And what more is this school hiding? Reese's Story, Chapter 3, When Things Get Dark. Yes, why not him? Why not Reese Wilson? Mr. Reese Wilson was 24, shorter than anyone he had ever dated, and had a vast love of anime and cat people. If ever asked what he thought about the afterlife, well, he was really never asked what he thought about the afterlife. Sure, Reese Wilson believed in heaven and God, but ghosts? Maybe he had thought about it. Maybe. He did remember one Halloween as a child, staying up late and reading about Ichabod Crane. Surely he'd been thinking about ghosts then. However much Reese may or may not have been thinking of ghosts in the past, he never imagined he would be teaching at Miss Anderson's School for Lost Children. And more than that, he never ever imagined he would be good at it. Miss Anderson told him she had never seen anyone help a child move on as fast as he had. Reese was pretty proud of himself. He was even getting along with his students. There was only one real thing bugging him at this point. He had been there a week and still didn't know what Ruby was. She could be a were-velociraptor for all he knew. A were-velociraptor being a werewolf, only the person turns into a raptor. It was one of hundreds of thoughts Reese had. All he really knew was that if she was a glittery vampire, he was moving out. The teacher sat alone in his room. Sabrina had gone mouse hunting, no doubt. He could hear the mower going in the back garden. Reese leaned back in his chair and wondered if Ruby did the mowing too. She was like some freak clone or something. He could hear a wasp in the window, and the mower stopped. Still, a freak that knew how to cook. Didn't she say she was going to make waffles for lunch? Waffles were his favorite. He could smell them even in his room. She must be making them now. Reese was pulled out of his relaxed state, and he stood up. No matter how amazing Ruby was, she couldn't make waffles and mow at the same time. Could she? He walked over to the window and saw a young man. He maybe looked a little younger than Reese, with dark brown hair. Reese could tell he was not a ghost. A ghost looked odd in direct sunlight. The teacher just watched him for a bit. He was pretty cute. Not perfect like Ruby, but still cute. The guy's bangs fell into his eyes, and with one muscular arm he pushed them up, smudging his cherub-like rosy cheeks with grass. The guy looked up, and Reese ducked down. Wonderful! Now the only cute guy around here thinks I'm a stalker, he voiced to the empty room. Sabrina came in just as Reese needed someone to yell at. And where have you been, young lady? It's your job to make sure I don't always look like a goofball. She looked at him before jumping onto the bed and falling asleep. Yes, think about what you have done. Reese stormed out of the room. Maybe waffles would make him feel better. Ruby had made waffles, and Reese munched away happily watching her make more. So, Ruby, who's the guy outside? She looked up. Stefan? Something shifted in her eyes. Not like the ghosts, like something in her eyes really moved. He gardens and does maintenance when needed. Reese considered, thinking about how many things were broke in this house. Clearly, this Stefan was pretty bad at his job. Though Reese would admit the gardens did look amazing. Ruby dropped a dish, and he looked up. She was looking out the window at Stefan. Her eyes had a distant look to them, almost as if she was daydreaming. Was Ruby in love with the gardener? The teacher needed to take his mind off of things. Lucky he had homework to grade. All of this was stupid. Ruby didn't break dishes. She didn't fall in love. I mean, she was sort of a zombie when it came to feelings anyways. Reese sat in the classroom. He had read and reread the same essay 8 times and had retained none of it. What I learned from living was, he had been there a week, and he could hardly even call her a friend. What I learned from living was, Stefan wasn't even that cute. What I learned from living was... Reese Wilson threw down the paper and let out a loud scream. In front of him was a boy, dark hair, dark skin, maybe 6 years old. Blood dripped from his chest. Well, that wasn't so uncalled for. A lot of the kids were wounded by their own death, and it showed in the afterlife. But this child just looked at him with wide brown eyes, never saying a thing. It was unnerving. Hey. The teacher tried to talk to the boy. The boy said nothing. So, what's your name? Worked with the last kid. Might as well try it again. A moment of more chilling silence. The boy leaned his head back and glided backwards out of the room, his feet never touching the floor. A smart man would have ran, Reese thought. A smart man would pack up now and move back to the city. I really, really hate not being a smart man. The teacher ran after the kid. Reese followed the student past the garden and into the woods, where he found a small stone house. No, not a house, a mausoleum. The child disappeared, leaving Reese with a chill that didn't want to go away. Reese Wilson knew what he had to do. He had to go inside. That's what the kid wanted. He, however, really didn't want to do that. Just when he thought he would turn back and do this another day, it started to rain, and without much of a choice in the matter, Reese went inside. It was cold in the mausoleum, but comfortable. Looking around, our hero saw 2 urns and a set of steps. They looked dark and foreboding. Reese pulled out his cell phone and made his way down. It was a long way down, but Reese finally found himself on a bed of soft dirt. He did his best to look around, but the cell phone only gave him a little light, and by the echoes he could tell he was in a big room. Reese was getting the sinking feeling that he should not be down here. Distant footsteps forced him to shut off the phone, leaving him in the dark. It was like being in a cave. The whole place smelled earthy, and as the footsteps came closer, he could hear echoey voices. "Do you think he has a chance in hell?" The first voice was clearly Miss Anderson. "In hell? Sure. Round here? Harder to say." Reese didn't know that voice, but it was without a doubt male. It sounded deep and almost calming. Miss Anderson gave an unhappy sound, and the unknown person let out a short laugh. "Look, boss, there are some things you can't do, even with help from your doll. I do not pay you to talk, cat. I pay you to get things done. So get it done." One set of footsteps got closer, and Reese panicked, not even remembering what way the steps were. He didn't have long to panic, though, as a small, cold hand took his and led him off into the dark, away from the footsteps.